Okay, so let's get going, shall we? Now, before we jump into the software-specific stuff and really start examining the procedure that we're going to follow, animating in what's called Adobe Animate, I want to draw your attention back to the canvas because there's a couple little things in here. Now that we're kind of in the body of the course, the introduction stuff's over, let's return to canvas and just look at some of the things that I've set up for week 2. Okay, so of course here we are, GCOM 400, Principles of Animation. And if we go into the week 2 module, and just give me a second here while I change it to student view, the module section in the vertical nav bar on the left, of course, will give you to week 2. And I started to populate week 2 with all the stuff that's very specific to the content that we're going to be learning today. This week is all about process, just understanding the mechanical steps of getting something to move, right? We're also going to throw in some ideas as there when it comes to arcs and ease in and ease out and timing. So we will talk about some of the core principles today for our pendulum swing. But this is going to be probably the one week that's the most uncreative, okay? Because it's all about understanding how to get something to move in the computer, which is weird and wacky and very, very unique in comparison to other apps out there, okay? So we have 2 things that we're going to be doing today. We're going to be doing a lab assignment, which we're probably going to be able to all do together in this class right now over the next 2 hours or so, okay? And then there's a homework assignment, which we'll come back to that towards the end of class. Pay attention real fast to how I'm structuring our Canvas pages, okay, or our Canvas modules. This is going to be the structure going forward. There's always going to be a homework section, a lab assignment section. Sometimes there'll be 2 lab assignments. Sometimes there'll be just 1, but I'll separate them out, okay? And there's also going to be a whole series of learning resources. These are things that we can find on the web or things that I've prepared for you guys that are outside the stuff that you find in the book, okay? While we're talking about homework and lab assignments, let's just go back to the screen direction, for example, just as an illustration as to what this is going to look like. Okay, so so this is how Canvas structures all of our assignment pages, and pay real close attention to this. Okay, now I need your help because maybe someone has it on their screen, but look at the due dates. All the stuff, the really important, kind of nuggets, if you will, for this assignment are going to be found at the top of every single assignment sheet. So it tells you specifically when this thing is due, okay, how many points it's worth, and what you're submitting. So in this particular assignment, you are submitting a file, a completed animation, okay? It also tells you the range of days that this assignment is available. Yes, sir? Good. That's what I was hoping it would say, okay? Because I have 2 different sections of GCOM 400, right? I have the Wednesday section today, and then I have the Thursday section. For whatever reason, Canvas, since I'm the instructor and I'm in student view, it's bringing all the Thursday dates, okay? Point being, the Thursday crew tomorrow are going to have different due dates than you guys, obviously, okay? So pay really close attention to the due dates that you see, at the top of your Canvas page. In addition, also, be aware of when this assignment is no longer going to be available for submission. Once you hit that last date, so in this particular assignment, it's September 21st. Once you hit that last date, the Dropbox for this assignment is going to close, and you'll no longer be able to get credit for this assignment. Every homework and lab assignment is going to have a range of days that you can successfully accomplish this mission, if you will. Okay? Just be aware of that. You can't indefinitely turn stuff in. There's always going to be a cutoff date for every single assignment that we do, okay? So clearly it starts today, and then it runs all the way through September 21st, okay? Now, remember, you're not going to get full credit, on September 21st, right? What happens every week you're late? You lose a letter grade, right? You lose a letter grade. So you can turn this assignment, if you were the Thursday crew, okay, you'd be able to turn this assignment in all the way up until 1 p.m. on the 21st, okay, and get some points, right? If you turn it in at 1:01 p.m. on the 21st, 0 points, okay? 0 points. All right, and actually, it's just going to close the Dropbox, and you just won't be able to submit, okay? That is a computer-driven event. I'm not sitting there at 1 o'clock going, ha, 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 close, right? No, I'm not doing that, okay? The computer just automatically shuts down submissions at 1 o'clock or at 1:01 p.m., okay? So don't upload at 1 o'clock p.m. or whenever the due date is. I would hate for you to be in the process of uploading and have your submission be canceled because the Dropbox is closed. Okay? All right, questions on that? Cool. Now for this class, I'm almost always going to show you in the homework and the lab assignments what kind of the expectation is. Okay? I give you a small little description. This is an animation class, so I always like to show you kind of the finished result, what we're striving you guys to make. So for our screen direction lab that we're going to be doing here in class here in a minute, or that we're going to at the very least start, it's pretty simple. Okay, we're just trying to get something to move, to travel from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen and back again. Very, very basic. Just get something to physically animate inside of your scene. Also, one other structural thing that I do for every single assignment is that I tell you exactly what you're going to be turning in and how I'd like to name your files. Okay, so there's a structure here, a naming convention that I use for all of my classes. You can begin to see it here. It's your last name, okay? GCOM 400. This is the lab assignment. Well, which lab assignment? This is the screen movement lab, and then the two files that you're going to be turning in. The two files that we're going to be turning in for pretty much everything that we do in here is going to be the Adobe Animate file, which has an extension of .fla, okay? And then either a QuickTime movie or an MP4, which is basically in itself the same thing, okay? If you're working at home on a PC, your PC is most likely going to pump out an MP4. Here on the Macs in this room and in the design lab, you're more often not going to produce an MOV. It's the same thing, okay? A QuickTime movie. And that QuickTime movie is going to be great because then you can publish it to YouTube, because you're absolutely going to want to share this awesome animation with your friends and family on Facebook, right? Yeah, I'm joking. You're not going to want to share this. This is the lamest one, right? This is like the throwaway assignment. We just got to make something move. That is our goal today, okay? Then naturally, we'll start to get a little bit more complex as we go along. All right. Excuse me. All right, should we get into it? Now that we kind of have the mechanics down a little bit? Excellent. All right, so as I mentioned earlier today, we're going to be doing all of our animation in this class digitally, okay? And we're going to be using an application called Adobe Animate. This used to be called Adobe Flash 4 or 5 years ago. Adobe has transitioned over into a new brand called Adobe Animate, and it's pretty cool. So if you have some experience working with Flash, you're going to be, at the very least, a little bit at home inside of Adobe Animate. If you cruise down to the bottom of your screen and examine the dock, you can see pretty quickly that we've placed Adobe Animate in your dock. It's the red one that says AN. That's Adobe Animate. Let's launch the app and start getting our hands dirty a little bit and start playing around and making some simple animations. Excuse me. All right. Let's see, our interface is very dark, so I'm going to see how much these lights kind of wash out the screen. I may turn off this overhead light here in a second. Hopefully I won't put anyone to sleep, That was a pretty cool film that we saw a minute ago, right? What did you guys wean from that film and learn from good old Uncle Walt? Ain't nothing. You didn't learn a single thing from the film we just watched.
How smooth the animation was?
Yeah, and it takes a tremendous amount of energy and effort to make those nice, fluid, smooth animations.
And they seem to keep most of the backgrounds as like a separate object from the movie.
Yeah, and you'll see that in our homework assignment this week. We often draw our backgrounds separately from the foregrounds, okay? At times, we'll need the backgrounds to move, and we'll break that down and deconstruct how we can engineer that. But really, they're two different things, for sure. What else do you guys learn and experience from that short film?
The whole thing?
The whole thing, yeah, just something that you thought was rad. Yeah, Flula.
The significance of music.
Absolutely. The music is a big part of just visual communication and storytelling. I say, and I have this attitude, that if we can captivate our audience without sound effects and music, we've done our job. Because once we put the music in there, it dials up the intensity and the emotional communication and the emotional kind of level to like 11, okay? The music adds so much. Kind of a good common trait between everyone on the planet is that we emotionally respond to music, which is pretty cool, okay? If we have strong visuals paired with strong, auditory cues, man, we're going to have something that's really impactful. Okay, so welcome to Adobe Animate, your new home away from home, okay? This is going to be our animation package over the next 15 weeks now. So let's get comfortable working inside of this environment. Has anyone worked with Adobe Animate before? Okay, so we're all new at this, okay? Keep that in mind. We're all brand new at working with Adobe Animate. If you have a question, crowdsource your question, okay? I want to be doing my best today to run around and get all the questions answered, but make sure that you're not lost and confused, at any point during today. With all things Adobe, the first thing that we have to do is to create a new document, a new project file. Now, in every sense, this document, this project file, represents kind of like an artist's canvas, if you will. Okay? It represents the boundary in which our artwork, and specifically for us, our animation is going to take place within. So let's fire off and create our first new document. And as one might imagine, by going to the top of the screen and choosing the File menu, we'll do New. Now, when you hit the New button, you're going to get a little dialog box, a little pop-over menu. There it is. That's going to ask you some very specific questions, okay? We need to define specifically how big our canvas is going to be. Now, if we wanted to, we can go in, numerically enter it in a height and width and all that jazz. But let's leverage the power of some presets, because the lovely folks down at Adobe have given us some great starting points. So I want you to go over to the Templates section, and under the Media Playback category, hopefully if they're installed, they're great. What we're looking for is Title Safe Area HDTV 720. Okay? This is going to create an image that's 1280 by 720, an excellent, excellent, excellent file size for the type of things that we're going to be creating in here. As we get further on in the semester, we'll probably change to the 1080p preset to give us some more pixels so we can add more detail. But for today, we'll keep it nice and simple. Okay? And if you just hit OK, it'll go ahead and create, it'll create our canvas. Okay? So now everyone at the very least should have this gigantic white rectangle on their screen, right? Now what we're seeing inside of the Adobe Animate interface is pretty easy to follow and understand. As you can see, this is going to be our stage, as it's called, our scene. This is where we're going to be doing the lion's share of our work. This is where we're going to be drawing, manipulating the images inside of our animation frames. This is the primary work area. But it's also directly linked to the timeline downstairs. And we'll talk a lot about the timeline here in a minute. This is an animation package, so there's going to be a lot of animation stuff in the timeline that's really going to help us create these really compelling movements. Okay? So these two areas are where we're going to be working the most. Okay? The top stage and the bottom timeline. Over here on the left, these are our property panels. Okay? So if we select something inside of our stage or timeline, we'll see a whole series of granular chunks of information on the right that will allow us to make any number of edits on whatever it is that we're trying to edit. In addition, way over there on the right, there's the toolbar, which is where we're going to find all of our drawing and shape creation tools. At the core of Adobe Animate is a fantastic, and I mean a fantastic, vector illustration engine. Okay? I think you're going to really like drawing inside of Animate. The problems that we're going to experience over the next couple of weeks aren't drawing problems, they're mechanical animation problems. But animation is an experience-based art form. So the more time we have kind of banging our head against some of these problems, the faster we'll get there. Okay? All right. It's a pretty simple application. It's designed for animation. I used to do all of this in Photoshop, by the way, and it just turned into a gigantic disaster in the most recent release. Photoshop has become so bloated with stuff that I could no longer really kind of support the Photoshop animation process. Adobe Animate is a good home for us. It's not the best 2D animation package on the face of the planet. There's some other really great alternatives like Toon Boom, very, very cool. Okay, but this is a pretty darn good one. This is a pretty good. It's been around for a long, long time, and so there's a really robust set of tools that the developers have created over its life cycle. All right, let's start making stuff. Let's start making some things. So as I mentioned today, our goal is to get something to move with inside the frame. Okay, so with that said, we're going to start, believe it or not, downstairs in our timeline. Okay, our timeline, think of it like a layers palette if you're used to working instead of Photoshop. We can save certain chunks of information on their own individual layer and then animate certain chunks of information over the frames inside of our animation. The first thing that I want to do is just kind of explore for a second the mechanical part of this area. Of course, we have a couple different layers here. So I think we need to make this wider. There we go. This is called the title action safe layer. This comes with a preset. So every layer is going to allow us to give us a name, which is cool. Organize your content. It really helps. Okay. We can also tell it to not draw. This is the visibility icon. If I zoom out, you can see we turn the visibility on and off. We can lock the layer if we'd like. So there's some cool functionality found here down inside of our timeline. I don't think we really need this title and action safe layer inside of our animation for this week. Towards the end of the semester, when we start talking about how to create animations for the broadcast industry, this title and action safe guides, these will come back and play a very important role in what we create. But for this week, we're just going to get rid of them. Now, has anyone probably kind of discovered how we could delete one of these layers in our timeline? So you can right-click on it. You get a contextual menu. What else? Right-click and cut layers, is that what you said? Yeah. Yep, that works, absolutely. Little trash can icon. I'm a mouse guy. Like, I really love just like clicking on icons and stuff. So the trash can icon is kind of our global way of deleting these layers. In addition, if you look very carefully down here, what's the little icon with the page flipped, with the page corner flipped up? What's that going to do? Yeah. So let's do some layer work here real fast. I'm going to get rid of my title and action safe, clicking on the trash can. And then I want to add my own layer, layer number 1, by clicking on the page icon. Let's give it a good name. I'm just going to call this, oh, I don't know, ball. And since we're down here, let's make this background. Oops, that's not how you spell background. All right. What's cool about this is that it allows us to really control what we're creating, how we're creating it, and how we're going to ask to make all these individual pieces move. I think you'll see this in play once we get a little bit more familiar with the application. All right. Now, while we're zoomed down in here in the timeline, let's speak for a second as to what we're seeing on the right-hand side of the timeline. So this is kind of an organizational section, but this in here is really important for us, okay? What are we seeing in this part of our timeline? Frames. And really, these are containers. Do we actually have any frames of animation in here yet? No, not a single thing. And this is an important distinction to remember about working inside of Adobe Animate. You start with nothing, okay? This isn't like Final Cut Pro or After Effects or Premiere Pro where we have this wonderful timeline that's just available for you to start putting things into. You start with an empty slate here. And then it's our job to go in and create frames and then to populate those frames with some sort of drawn content, okay? Adobe Animate wants very, very, very badly to behave like a classical Disney animator would in the 1920s and the 30s, okay? Think of each one of these frames as a piece of paper, okay? As we saw in the film, animation is just a trick, right? It's an illusion. We're fooling people's brains to make believe that these things are actually moving. Are they actually moving? No. It's just individual drawings. They're stacks of drawings. And our brain, because of that idea of persistence of vision, right? Our brain holds on to that one picture longer than it takes, or longer than it should, and it starts to blur and blend what we're, these repetitive pictures, and it starts to create the illusion of movement. It's not actually moving. They're just pictures, individual still pictures. Yes, sir? I don't believe so. You can make animations, I think, as long as you want. I'm sure there's a technological limit to how many frames. I've personally have never ran into it, but I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure the Adobe developers will be like, yeah, you can only have 999,099, it's like probably like 1 million frames or something. You wouldn't want to animate on anything longer than 100 or 200 frames, right? At least in one sitting or in one project file. That just turns into something that's difficult to manage. Okay? All right. So these frames are going to be very, very important for us. Okay? So we need to add some frames in here. Okay? I'm going to start adding, it's kind of hard to see because of my my playhead's in the way. This little red thing, that's called the playhead. Now we can't move it, but I can deselect the frame. So you guys see under the playhead, we have these two dark gray bars. These two dark gray bars are representations of empty frame with no content at all inside of them, okay? There's a couple little chunks of terminology and some vocab, if you will. It's not really vocab, it's iconography that we need to look at, okay? Now I'm going to draw them on the board here so we can begin to understand their role a little bit more directly. Okay, these circles are important, okay? You see the dark gray bar with a little circle in it? It's a good icon to remember. So we have a circle, and then in a second you're going to see a circle that's been filled in. And then you're going to see a bar that looks like that, okay, on the actual frames itself. This is a representation of an empty frame with nothing in it, okay? The dark gray circle is empty, nothing, nada, not a single little chunk of information in there, okay? The dark gray ones, the filled in circles we'll see here in a second, as will be that one. So we don't have anything in there. We don't have a single frame of animation or a single bit of content in one of our blank animation frames. So let's add some stuff in there, okay? Let's add some content. I'm on my ball layer, and let's do this. I'm going to go over to my toolbar and grab my sphere tool. Play around with all this fill and stroke stuff. There's a really cool drawing engine in here. I think the part that gets people a little confused is the stroke. What is a stroke? It's a fancy word for outline, right? So we can fill a shape, and then we can have an outline go around that shape. Okay, just be aware of that. Right now, the pencil is a representation of our stroke, our outlines, and the paint bucket is going to be our fill color. So my little circle that I'm about to draw is going to be blue. That's cool. If you hold down the Shift key, it'll constrain it. There we go. All right, now, I don't want you to focus on the wonderful piece of imagery that I've created. You know, this is an Academy Award-winning piece of artwork. But let's return back down to our timeline and look very specifically at what's changed, okay? Now, if you're playing along, it looks like everyone is, what's changed? The circle's been filled. On that animation frame, we've gone from a clear circle or an empty circle, okay, to a dark circle. You can actually see the comparison right down here. Also, the color of our animation frame has changed, right? It's gone from dark gray, as we see down here in the background layer, to a light gray with a filled-in dot, okay? Dark gray, empty. Light gray, there's something on it. There's art on that keyframe, okay? What we have created here with the dark circle, okay, and I should have given room. So the dark circle is what we call a keyframe, okay? A keyframe is, we're going to talk a lot about this, okay? But a keyframe is basically a storytelling frame. It's a frame inside of the larger context of our movement in which the audience absolutely needs to understand the pose of the character or the location of something inside the frame. From here, we're going to be able to go in and create and continue to create the in-betweens, okay? All right. So the keyframe, there's a couple different things. It defines the drawing, but it also defines when that drawing is going to happen inside the larger context of our timeline, okay? So basically, on frame 1, since there's a light gray bar with a black dot on it, I've told the animation package that I want that blue ball to be on screen left on frame 1, okay? Now let's go in and move it, okay? Let's create another keyframe, okay? Creating additional keyframes is very, very easy, okay? If you go to the top of the screen where it says Insert, okay? And please note, I'm on the ball layer right now, okay? Timeline, keyframe. Great little keyboard shortcut. This is F6. I don't know why they only give you the keyboard shortcut for the first one, for just insert frame, okay? But insert keyframe is F6 on your keyboard, okay? You're going to be doing this a lot. Now what this is going to do, let's just do it real fast, bloop, okay? What this is going to do, if we go back down to our timeline, it actually creates a duplicate of frame 1, okay? However, again, if you look very carefully here, light gray, dot, black dot, okay? These are keyframes that we've created. We have 2 frames that are the same. Let's do this. Let's zoom out real fast. And then on frame 2, I'm going to use my direct selection arrow, which is this dark guy, this dark arrow up at the top. Keyboard shortcut V. V is in Victor. Good one to commit to memory and put in your notes. You're going to be using this a lot. And now, check it out. I can take my little sphere and move it to the opposite side of the screen. So at this point, everyone should have 2 frames of animation, 2 key frames of animation. If we return back to our timeline, we can actually now start moving this red bar around between the different animation frames, okay? So on frame 1, our drawing is over there. On frame 2, our drawing's over there, okay? Cool, huh? Now, if we were to hit the play button, would we even see some sort of movement in here? No, because it's we have 1/12 of a second complete with these two animation frames. We have a little bit of work left in front of us, right? So we're going to need some more. The purpose of these keyframes is to define the extents, the extreme motion of our animation, right? On the first keyframe, the ball is on the left. On the second keyframe, the ball is on the right. Now that we've defined the extreme motion of our animation, we're going from left to right, we have to draw or create what are called in-betweens, okay? Which are all the animation frames that are in between the keyframes, okay? So let's plan this out, because animators, we need to kind of plan our animations out a little bit before we get really into it, right? The keyframes are easy things for us to create, but now we need to figure out the timing of it. How long do we want our animation? How long do we want it to take for our ball to go from one side of the screen to the other side of the screen? A second? Yeah, it depends, but we're going to figure that out right now. So it no longer depends, we're creating it. In my mind, I want it to take, let's do a second, to go from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. So, bloop, that's about a second. Bloop, okay? So how many animation frames do we need to create? 24. We have 2, right? So now we need to go in, and now that we've defined our keyframes, we still need to go in and start adding some frames in here, okay? Now the computer's not going to do this automatically for us. We need to go in and do it manually. So here's what I'm going to suggest that you do. And I'm going to utilize some keyboard shortcuts to make this a little bit easier, okay? Notice, and this is important, that I've put my playhead on frame 1. Okay, what I want to do is push, and I want to move my screen over just a little bit so we can see the target a little bit more clearly. Here's frame 25. So I need to get that keyframe over there. So there's a couple things that we can do in here. If you'd like, you can drag that over to frame 24. Okay. Now what happens when we left click and drag a keyframe forward in time? What did it do? Yeah, look at your screen. What did it do? It stretched the first frame. Okay. We now have 24 frames of animation, but thus enter the role of that little rectangular shape. Okay. Because these are the 3 icons that you're going to be seeing in your timeline. Clear circle or unfilled circle, filled circle, unfilled vertical rectangle, okay? That unfilled vertical rectangle, so this guy, represents the conclusion of a frame, okay? Or a conclusion of a drawing. Maybe that's a better way of communicating this. So we're holding this one drawing on frames 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way to 24. So this is one drawing, and then we have a new drawing, okay? If we were to look at my animation right now, as I scrub through it, you can even hit the play button down there. So it holds that one drawing for 23 frames, okay? And then on frame 24, we get to the new drawing. Make sense? So that little white rectangle is a representation of a conclusion of a drawing, okay? Now, we don't want to hold that one drawing. That's not what we're here to do, right? We want to go in and start defining and creating maybe some new drawings on the inside, okay? And this is the cool thing about working inside of Adobe Animate. If we were to move our cursor back over here to frame 2, now we get to start having some fun. And this is where your deductive reasoning skills perhaps could come in. We're just going to try to make this move. It's going to be kind of sloppy for the most part, but we're going to see if we can do our best, okay? So if on frame 1, our animation starts over there, and on frame 24, we're here. On frame 12, which is the midpoint, and FYI, you get a frame counter down here at the bottom of your timeline, okay? Maybe on frame 12, I can put my little ball in the middle to bisect the animation, right? Start, end, well, what's the middle point? Good question, right? Yeah, frame 12, and then visually, what's the middle point, okay? Let's do it. So once again, I'm in my direct selection tool, and I'm going to move that ball to somewhere I think is in the middle. Oops, actually, I take that back. I apologize. I forgot to do something. I got ahead of myself. Because if you make a change to any drawing inside of its bar, it's just going to preserve that change over that entire bar like it did here. So what we need to create, I'm going to hit undo, Command Z, edit, undo, Command Z, good one to remember. What I forgot to do, and this is my fault, is that I didn't insert a keyframe in here, okay? I need to tell the computer that in this moment in time, I want to capture and create a new drawing, okay? So here's how we do it. It's really, really easy, okay? Just hit F6, which is create keyframe, okay? Now, let's look very carefully at what's happened here, because this is the tough part about working inside of Animate, is understanding all of these bars. So we have the drawing of where the ball is on the left. It goes from frame 1, and when does it end? This first drawing, when does it end? Just looking at my screen, when does this first drawing end? Frame 11, because that white rectangle or the clear rectangle is the conclusion of a drawing, okay? Then we have another keyframe. How long is this drawing going to last for? From what, frame 12 through frame 23, right? Then we have another drawing, okay? If you begin to think of these things as drawings, we're holding a drawing, then a new drawing is coming up, and we're holding it, then we got a new one coming up, okay? When you're on top of a keyframe, as I am, we can change our illustration. Let's just find that center point, maybe right around in there. So now if I go back to frame 1, see how it's on the left until we get to that new drawing, boop, right there, and then I won't cycle to the right until, boop, that new drawing, okay? Do this real fast, if you haven't already. All right, let's figure out the rest of this here, okay? So now, maybe on frame 6 or so, where does the ball need to be if we're going in a straight line, okay? Where are we going to put the ball on frame 6 so it starts to go boop, 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 boop across the total duration of our timeline? Yeah, between 1 and 12, which is what, frame 6 or 7, you know, whatever, somewhere right around there. Excuse me. With our playhead on frame 6, what are we going to do? What's the next step? F6, which is going to add a keyframe, right? And a drawing is not going to be created until we create a keyframe, okay? So I'll hit F6, bloop, and now I can change my drawing a little bit. Maybe right around there. Yeah, there we go. Even hit the play button. Bloop, bloop. Cool, we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, keep going. Keep doing this process. Start adding additional keyframes. Move your drawing. Remember the process. Add a keyframe, move the drawing. Add a keyframe, move the drawing. Yes, ma'am.
So, what you said behind this here, and I'm not sure. It's like when we went here to here, it left.
Ah, yes. Okay, so what has happened is that you have moved the fill. This is the outline in its original location.
Okay.
Yeah. What we could do, let's see, go back to, what we should do is probably just delete that outline.
Okay.
Go back to, go back to frame 1. And it may be tough to select in its current state, but give it a try. See if you can just click on the outline.
Is that it?
Hit the backspace key. Let's see what you get.
Just delete?
Yep. Well, I delete everything, so hit undo. Get it back. Maybe try with the white arrow and see if you can try to select just that outline.
Oh, I see.
That may be it, yeah. No, it's getting everything. Don't worry about it for right now.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, just keep going. Yes, ma'am. The shaded means you just have it selected.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you were to like just click on your background layer, le background, see how it goes away?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
For some reason, the outline keeps appearing.
Yeah, if you have an outline that's staying on your screen, don't worry about it for the time being. We can go back and fix that. Yeah. Now, if you wanted to, yeah, so now you're on that keyframe, right? Go forward one. Oh, get in the keyframe. You should be able to select it.
Oh, would I have to?
Yep. Yeah, now hit backspace. That works. Good. Good. I see little balls moving on the screens of everyone in here. How awesome is that? Yes, sir. Okay, let's fix it. What you got?
I started with the beginning.
Okay, good. Okay. So now, what's the next step? We have a keyframe.
Move the ball.
You got it. Well, not yet. We need to create a new keyframe. Yep, you're on the right path. Yep. Boom. Good.
So I stay on the.
Yep, you're good. Watch what happens when you click. It creates a new one, right? So now we have a new keyframe. Where do we want that new keyframe to live?
Somewhere in 25.
Yeah, or 24. Let's do 24. So now you got it. Just move it. Yoink. Cool. So now we have this one drawing being held for 24 frames. Then we have the next one. Okay? Now, on this 25th frame, we haven't changed its location, right?
Yeah.
So we create the keyframe, then we change it. Change the drawing. Okay?
So move it.
Move it, yeah.
So it's already created.
Yeah. Yeah, because we already created it, so any change that we make after creation will be saved in that keyframe.
Okay. Got it.
Cool. Test it. Yeah, go back to... Okay? So what's next?
Make another one.
Make another keyframe, right? Somewhere right there in the middle. Now look at your time indicator down here. It's on 11. Go to 12. Okay, what's the next? That's perfect. What's the next step?
Keyframe.
Yep. Boom. Okay, now that you've made the keyframe, what's next? Change. Oh, you don't have to move it. That works too. Yep.
Move it.
Move it. You got it. Rinse and repeat.
Oh, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
What are these on the bottom though? It's like one time I tried to create a keyframe and then another keyframe just came out of nowhere.
Okay. I don't know. Without seeing precisely what you did, it's hard to know. Just be real apparent as to which layer you're working on. in the keyframes that you're creating.
Oh, okay, so this is supposed to be for the background only.
You got it. Yep.
And this is for the
Yep.
the object I'm working on.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Good job. Lots of keyframes, huh? Yeah, basically, in a second here, we're going to have a keyframe on every single frame. Yes, sir. Chris, what's up? Okay. Go back to the first keyframe. All right. Aha, I see. So look very carefully at the color of that frame on frame 2. What color is it?
It's all done.
It's all dark. Dark is a representation of an empty keyframe.
Okay.
Let's do this. You probably hit F5, hit F6. Now, let's see. Can you put your playhead on frame 1? I'm having a hard time. My old eyes. Yeah, it's not creating a keyframe for. Let's do this. Let's go insert, timeline, keyframe. See if it does the same thing. No, it has decided it doesn't want to do it at all. Interesting.
Should just start a new file?
Start a new file. See what happens. Okay. This is my big problem. Without watching every single step that you've done, it's hard at times to get a good grasp of what's happened. Desiree, that is awesome. I love it. It's like a hurricane of movement.
Is there a button to go back between frames?
Try left and right arrow. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. No. What is it? Oh man, there is it. Oh, is it these in here? Yeah, that's what it was. Sweet. Yep. So I just was asked a great question, and I'm going to share it with you guys on the board. And I apologize, we don't have much of a whiteboard area here. If you want to just manually step forward and backwards inside of your animation, so like move the playhead forward 1 frame, not add a keyframe or do anything, just move the playhead forward and backwards. It's these 2 guys on your keyboard. Okay. So it'd be the ones, let's see, it would be the comma and period keys, okay? That's going to move your playhead forward and backwards. Great job. Who's your name again?
Brian?
Brian, great job, Brian. Sure. All right, now I only have a couple animation keyframes on my drawing, but I want to show one thing that will help. Are you guys having a hard time kind of visualizing the path of your animation? Some people are like, yes, I can't do this. This is silly, right? I want to be able to see, we have a keyframe that defines the start. We have a keyframe that defines the end. Where do I need to place the ball so it's directly in the middle or even somewhere else? Sometimes the visualization of your animation is tough, okay? Let's enable something that is going to help. It's called onion skinning, okay? Onion skinning is going to be your best friend in all of this. And let me showcase precisely what I'm talking about. You can turn it on down here in the bottom of your timeline. And it's right there, okay? So you get the VCR play controls. FYI, this is going to loop your animation, but it's this guy right down here. This is going to enable onion skinning, okay? Now, when you enable onion skinning, I want you to look very, very carefully at this bar that shows up above your timeline. This is important. This new bar, is a representation of the frames in which it's going to be doing this ghosted trail called onion skinning. Now, I want to see this ghosted trail for the entire animation that I've created. So what do I need to do to it? Yeah, I need to take this little blue dot and move it over here. So now the computer is going to generate some onion skinning, a preview, and there it is. You can see the ghosted trail, right? My playhead is currently chilling on frame 24 of my animation. So what is this? This is the ball on frame 12. This is the ball on frame 6. And this is the ball on frame 1. So we're seeing, this is called onion skinning.
So this is like, it keeps track of what you're doing?
Yeah, you got it. Yep. It's very, very helpful. Very helpful, okay? Because now we can a little bit more accurately begin to plan our animation. Okay? All right, you ready for some knowledge? So I hit you with some principles. Okay? Now that we're starting to understand the basic mechanics of how to animate inside of Adobe Animate, let's start applying some real-world principles of animation to our simple little movement here. Okay? We're going to be studying in depth, and next week I have a big presentation on the 12 principles of animation that we're going to be looking at. But there are a few that we should be putting in immediately, starting today. Okay? Because starting today, you guys are professional animators, right? Yeah. You are a professional animator starting today. Change your thinking. You're not a student. You are an animator. Okay? One of the principles of animation that we should be applying in every single movement that we create is the principle called slow in and slow out, often referred out there in the real world as easing. Now think about it for a second. If we're animating a character standing still, we ask that character in our drawings to run forward, to sprint to the other side of the room, how fast is that character going to be moving at the beginning of their animation? Slow, right? It's kind of like a car. I have a small little compact car, so I stomp on my gas pedal, and then like a good 3 or 4 seconds later, I go. It's not it doesn't have a very big engine. It's kind of a putt-putt car, right? It's, okay? Everything in our world, everything, a machine, a robot, characters, an arrow flying through, a spaceship traveling around our universe is slowly going to begin its movement, ramp to 100% speed, and then what happens at the end? Just like you would if you were sprinting across the track, you'd slowly start, get to 100% speed, and then once you cross the finish line, do you just fall over and stop? No. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes you do, right? No, you slowly come to a stop. Everything slowly starts and slowly ends, okay? Now, why? Why does it do that? This isn't just some animation trick. There's actually a reason behind it. What would you imagine, having been master animators, why do we do this? Or why does this happen? Yeah.
Principles of acceleration.
Okay. What does that define? Define that for me.
Basically, the more mass something has, the more force is needed to make it go. But the thing is, it also goes at the same rate as long as you have the same force.
I love it. Absolutely. And what is a big driver in that change of acceleration? The one thing physically in our universe, well, I can't speak on our planet, because on other planets it's different. The one thing on good old planet Earth that we can't turn off? Gravity. Okay? This idea of slowly starting and slowly end helps us achieve the illusion of gravity. That there's some sort of force that's pushing against our object that's not allowing it to reach its maximum 100% speed immediately, right? Have you guys ever seen that great test that they do, or that great example they do in physics class where they drop a bowling ball off the side of a building, right? They have a bowling ball and a feather, right? They drop it off the side of the building. Which one's going to land on the ground first? The bowling ball, right? Makes sense. It's heavier. It's not going to be influenced as much by the friction in the air. What happens, though, in a vacuum? We take away all that friction and the influence of gravity. What happens? They fall at the exact same rate, the exact same speed. Yeah, it's a cool experiment. If you've ever seen it on YouTube, but it's pretty neat. It's in one of those moments where you start to understand the effects of resistance and friction, and most importantly, gravity. Okay? So we want to try to replicate that as much as we can here in the computer. Let's begin to do that on our simple little animation, right? I want to have my ball slowly begin and slowly stop. Okay? Now, in order for us to create that inside of the computer, we have to create small little micro movements. Okay? I'm going to go to frame 1 here. There's my drawing at frame 1. Okay? Let's advance my playhead a little bit to frame 2 by hitting the period key. Whoop. Okay? Awesome. Excellent. And for whatever reason, it looks like it truncated my onion skins. I want all that in there. Okay, so on frame 2, I need to add a keyframe on frame 2. Pop quiz, what's the keyboard shortcut? F6. Okay, get used to pressing F6. Okay, I already have a drawing here, so I'll create F6 to create a new drawing. And then, once we have a keyframe, we do what? Yeah, we move the ball, or we change the drawing, right? That's our process. We create a keyframe, then we move it. We create a keyframe, then we change it. Create, change, rinse and repeat 10 billion times over the next 15 weeks. So on frame 2 here, and this is where the onion skinning really comes into play here. On frame 2, I'm not going to have a big movement. I want to have a small movement. And I want to zoom in here so you guys can see it. Okay. So the light blue ghosted ball is which frame? This is frame 1. This is frame 2. If you haven't kind of figured this out yet, the colors on your onion skinning are important. The ones in blue are what? The blue frames are what? The blue ghosted ones are the past. Okay? The green are the future. The frames that are in front of my playhead are in green, and the frames that are before my playhead, well, that's maybe, so the frames that are after my playhead, to the right of my playhead, are going to be in green, and the ones to the left of my playhead are going to be in blue. Okay? So on frame 1, this is where my ball is. On frame 2, look how small the movement change is in here. When there's this very small change in movement in between frames, what speed are we recreating here? You have it right, Elizabeth. What is it? Slow. You got it. When there's a small movement in between frames, it's going to be a slow movement in comparison to a big change in location of my ball, because here's frame next, right? I don't know what frame number this is. I don't care. It doesn't matter, right? This is the first frame. This is the second frame. Let me rephrase this. This is the first drawing. This is the second drawing. This is the third drawing. Look at the change in location between drawing number 2 and drawing number 3. How would you describe its distance traveled? Pretty big, right? So when there's a big distance traveled between 2 animation frames, what is the illusion that we're going to create? And when it comes to speed, moving fast, right? Small movements in between frames, slow. Big movements in between frames, fast. Okay? So with that said, I'm going to create a few more animation frames here. So I'm going to use my period key to advance my frame forward one time. Keyboard shortcut for adding a keyframe. F6, you got it. Oops. There we go. F6. And now I'll change my drawing. Okay. Now what I'm looking at here is trying to create a nice even spacing for the first maybe 3 or 4. I still want it to be moving, but it's not going to be very much. Okay, here it is, the next one. Frame 4, excuse me. And last but not least, on frame 5, maybe on frame 5, let's hit F6 to add another one in here. On frame 5, maybe the distance is going to start to grow a little bit. Yeah, there we go. Here's, okay, so frame 6, I'm going to change my drawing on frame 6 a little bit, because now it's really starting to grow. Let's play it as is and see what we get. Okay? I'm going to turn off my onion skinning, because sometimes the onion skinning is cool, but it gets in the way of us understanding what we've created. In addition, I'm also going to turn on the loop feature of my timeline, so this animation will just repeat over and over and over again. I didn't hit the loop button. Yeah. And it's only looping that range of frames. Many apologies. Now it's not, it's kind of jerky still, because we only have a couple animation frames in there. but let's keep going with this and keep adding more animation frames in the mix, and we're going to go all the way to 24. So it slowly begins. And then on frame, let's turn our onion skinning back on. Oops, that's outlines. Don't want outlines. Some people like the outlines. By the way, if you look at your options, you have onion skinning, and then you can just do the outlines. Whatever works for you, man. Whatever is, you know, the way you want to look at it, I'm cool with that. Okay? So there it is on frame 6. Maybe on frame 7. On frame 7, we start to travel a little bit more. Frame 8, F6, yeah. There we go. Start traveling a little bit more. Frame 9, a little bit more spaced out. Yeah, now we're getting there. Slow, then poof. Let's play it now. Yeah, for the first couple in there, we're starting to get there. Of course, I have some work. It still gets kind of jerky right about in here because it holds that frame for a bit. So there's 10. Let's turn my outlines back on. Now I want to try to evenly space these out a little bit. And I think I may even change that one so it's a little bit more representative. Okay. Yeah. Cool, huh? See how it slowly starts? Okay. Slowly starts, then boom. Okay. One of the cool things about working inside of Adobe Animate is that we can go back in and tweak things a little bit. Okay. Let's stop my my playback here, and I'm also going to return to my outlines. I think I'm maybe on frame 2 here. I think my movement is just too much. So now I can go back in and start tweaking it a little bit and really customize the way I want my animation to behave. Okay. I want it to move even slower at the beginning. You're going to find that the process of being an animator, or the process of animating something, requires you to make something, then to play it in real time. You make something, you play it, then you make some changes. Of course, my problem is that I'm an animator first and an instructor second. So I want to spend all my time just making this perfect. Okay, let's try that. Yeah, man. Did you see that? That looks stellar. I'm going to give myself a celebratory high five. Okay? Looking awesome, right? Because now, with that small little change, it hangs out at the beginning next to the starting line for a couple more frames before it really takes off and explodes. Okay? Slow in and slow out. It helps us recreate the illusion of gravity. Okay? All right. With that said, here's what I would like you to do. Let's return to Canvas here real fast. And let's look at the screen direction assignment. Here's your mission, and we're going to start this, and we may even finish this in class today. Okay? I want you guys to create a simple little animation that includes a background, okay, of an object. Doesn't matter what, okay? As you can see in the example that I provided you, a little boomerang is fine. It could be a picture of your head. I don't care. Anything, okay? But I want that object to travel from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen and then back again, okay? So it's going and then back to someplace on that other side of the screen, okay? The boomerang is a good example of that because it goes to the right side of the screen and then back, okay? It doesn't have to be a looping animation like the boomerang is, okay? So it doesn't have to return to its original location, but I want it to go to the right side of this, start on the left, go to the right, all the way back to the left, okay? Play around with the tools that you find over in your toolbars. They're pretty fun and entertaining. There's a lot of shape creation and drawing tools in your toolbar. The one thing that I would like you to be very aware of when working in the toolbar is, or when working in creating the background and your other animated objects in your scene, is which layer you're working on, okay? If you want to draw a background like this artist has with the sky and the clouds and stuff, put all of that in the background layer and then draw your boomerang on another layer. Because I don't want to have to animate everything on the background, right? That's going to be static. And of course, naturally, we just want to be able to animate the contents of the ball layer, okay? So use this layer stack to your advantage. In addition, almost always on every single homework and assignment sheet that I give you, I'm going to tell you specifically what I'm expecting you to do. Okay, so these are the expectations. As I mentioned, travel from left to right and then back again. Include a background that does not move. Okay, 24 frames. 24 frames, so basically a second. So figure out the timing of how to get your object to slowly start, travel to the right side of the screen, and then slowly end. Everything slowly starts and slowly ends, okay? And then, of course, please make sure that your canvas size is 1280 by 720. And let's talk real fast about how we can export it from Animate. It's really, really easy. Okay, File, Export, Video. Just that easy, okay? Or is it Movie? I'll see you here in a second. Once you get, there should be a little popover. No, it's video. Should have gone with my gut. Yeah, it's video. Don't do movie, do video. Okay? I know that's ripe with confusion. What I always look for is this popover. Okay? Because with inside this popover, we get some really cool options in here. Okay? This is all looking good. So stop when last frame is reached. This is good. Make sure you understand where you're saving it and what the name is. I want to put mine on my desktop. Notice that I'm creating in .mov. This is fine. Hit Save, Export, and you should be on your way. Oh, I apologize. There's one thing. This happens every single semester, and I apologize. When we reinstall the apps, all the defaults are returned. What it's doing now is it's launching Media Encoder, which is Adobe's professional grade video compression application. You don't actually have to use it, and it actually kind of makes it a little bit more complex if you do. Let's go back. Let's do it one more time. Export video, okay? But this time, turn off. I want to turn off Convert Video in Adobe Media Encoder. Okay. Thank you, Adobe Media Encoder. And in a moment, there it is. There's my silly little animation. Ta-da! Okay, that really is as easy as it's going to be. Okay. So when you're done with your animation for both your homework and your lab, let's just do that one more time so everyone's on the same page. File, Export, Video. You'll get this little popover. Make sure that Convert Video in Adobe Media Encoder is unchecked. Okay? That way it's just simple and easy for the first couple weeks, and then we'll explore why you want to do this, and there is a good reason to. And then make sure you know the name and where you're saving it. Okay? It's going to take about a second and a half to export all these animation frames because it's not very long. Okay? And then when you hit the export button, I'm not going to do it because I've already done it, what you'll get is this thing, okay? In addition, since we're talking about exporting, make sure you do File, Save to generate your Animate project file, okay? Notice that the Animate document is a .fla, okay? We'll hit export, or save, excuse me. All right. So when you're done with both your homework and your lab this week, this is what you're creating, or this is what you're going to be submitting to the assignment sheet back in Canvas, okay? Your FLA, and of course, your animation, a movie of your animation, okay? Sound good? Everyone kind of generally understanding the lab? Okay, so I want to give you guys some time in class to work on your lab. Question, I'm sorry.
Would that be different if we save it in flash drives?
No, no. These are the raw project files that you create from the application. If you were to transfer it over to a thumb drive, it's not going to change any of this stuff. Yep. So we're not done yet. There's a couple more things that I want to talk about, but I want you guys to get going and begin working on your lab. Okay? Understand it? Ready, set, go. Let's do it. Okay, so let's get back together real fast. There's one other Adobe Animate thing that I want you guys to be aware of, and this is something that I see people kind of running into, and it's good to kind of start to understand how the Adobe Animate drawing system works, okay? Because it is quirky, and it is a little different from other drawing systems out there, okay? Let me show you specifically what I'm talking about. If you're using a lot of shapes, okay, and let's do this. Here, I'm going to destroy my animation, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to zoom in. The Z key is the zoom tool, by the way. All right, so check it out. I just have a blue sphere here on frame whatever, okay? If I go in and draw another shape, okay, and let's just make this red, okay, like that, okay? Notice that they're on top of each other when I initially drawed them. Now, when I go back with my direct selection arrow, what happened to my blue guy? Let me do it again. I'll make it more obvious this time. Okay? Okay, I've done that. If I go back to my direct selection arrow and then move that red circle, what happened to good old blue over there? Yeah, he got nibbled into, okay? Yeah. If this is something you don't want, okay? So if you want to be able to animate these two shapes independently and preserve their shape, there's one thing that we need to change, okay? And this is a landmine, okay? This is a pitfall that everyone's going to fall into the first 4 or 5 times until they go object drawing mode, okay? Check it out. I'm going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to undo Command-Z a couple times just to get back to my blue sphere. This time, however, same thing, right? But if we go over into our tool properties, object drawing mode is off. This is going to nibble into things like we just saw. However, if we enable object drawing mode, bloop, okay, do the exact same thing, okay? Once again, I'll return and grab my direct selection arrow. Both those shapes are preserved, okay? So keep in mind, that object drawing mode is going to determine whether or not it does kind of it kind of tries to join the shapes, okay? For me, I try to keep object drawing mode just on, so I always have an editability, an edit function to my illustrations, okay? One other thing, this is something that's going to be kind of fun. Backgrounds. Folks are working on backgrounds. Great job. A lot of you guys are figuring it out. I'm just going to go in and make a green background. Oh, so the background of your canvas, it's empty. There's nothing there, so there's nothing to fill. Okay? A lot of folks are trying to go in and just flood a color in your background. You can't do that because it's just invisible, if you will. It appears white to you, but as far as the computer goes, it's invisible. So if you wanted a background color, there are a couple things in here that we can do. The easiest way, and literally the easiest way, is just to draw a big shape back there. Oop, I'm not on my background layer. That's a bad form. Okay. And let's make it something other than black. Let's make it green. Okay. Now I got a nice big green cube. This is cool because now I have a drawing that's going to be in my background. However, if we were to go back down here to my timeline, when is this drawing, or let me rephrase it, is that green background cube going to show up throughout the entirety of my animation? No. When is it going to turn off? Yeah, what would be frame 3, right? Because remember, this white rectangle, or this kind of non-filled rectangle, is a representation of the last frame this drawing is going to appear. Okay? So if I want this drawing to last all 24 frames of my animation, what do I have to do to that drawing? Yeah, extend. I need that to be over here. Okay? If that frame, or if that drawing has this conclusion frame on it, you can left click and drag it over to frame 24. Okay, let me show you what I'm talking about. I can grab it. I can drag it over here. Okay. Boom, mission accomplished. Okay, that works. Now we're going to see that background animation on every single frame, or that background illustration on every single frame. Okay. If you don't have, I'm going to hit undo a couple steps here. If you don't have that conclusion terminating, and I'm just going to delete it by cutting the frame. If you don't have it, and all you have is a dot like that, here's what you do. Okay. You have a filled keyframe, but no terminating. You don't have two frames of the drawing. You just have a single frame. Select that frame and hit F5, which will give you 2 frames of that drawing, and then you can move it again like we did before. Oops. Of course, that little guy in there is getting in the way. Let's remove that frame, and now I can get it in there. Of course, I didn't grab it. Come on now. There it is. It was being touchy. One final thing before we escape. Notice that my green cube extends past the boundaries of my canvas. This is cool. This is allowed. You can totally color outside the lines. I think that's awesome. It's a great way of working. However, when you export, what's going to happen? Yeah, you're only going to see what's inside your canvas, okay? If you want to preview real fast the contents of your canvas, you can ask the application to clip that thing right there. Clip the contents outside your stage, so you only see what's going to get exported. I'll let you figure out which way is more comfortable for you, okay? Doesn't make a difference to me. Yes, sir?
If you have two shapes overlapping, is there a way to make one of them come forward and one of them go back?
Yeah, absolutely. And you can do that through the modify, arrange, pull down menu, okay? You can even align stuff, you know, it's pretty cool. All right? I'll let you guys continue to explore that as you get into this a little bit more. Okay? Question? Blend like changing the blend modes? Or
blend colors together so they're not so like this is one shade and then this is the other.
like a gradient? Or yeah, there are gradient fills. Yeah, let's see. Let's see, is it in here? No, I believe, what is it? It's the gradient tool. I think they're right now, because this is just this fill. Let's see, is it in here? Or maybe we can tell it to be a gradient.
There are gradients.
Yeah, oh, these are the default swatches. There are gradients in here. How do we, I'm trying to remember. Let's see, is this the gradient tool? With eraser, it's in here. Just do a Google search on it. You'll find it. You know, it's in here. I'm doing a bad job at the moment. Fill color. Should be a fill style. Anyways, I'm in the ballpark, but I'm not getting it right, which is fine. Just do a YouTube or Google search. You'll find the answer to that pretty fast. Okay, one other thing. Let's just go over your homework real fast, okay, before you guys escape for the afternoon. So most folks are on their way to finishing their lab assignment, but if we return to the week 2 module and examine our homework assignment, it's a little bit different. It's called a pendulum swing, okay? This is going to continue to challenge your ability to animate inside, inside of Adobe Animate. It's basically the screen direction assignment on steroids. However, I want you guys to infuse your pendulum swing with the illusion of weight, and we achieve that by having it slowly start and slowly end, right? If the movement is linear and everything is evenly spaced in our animation frames, it's not going to feel like this heavy weight is being influenced to stop, then influenced to go, okay? Slow in at the top of one arc, and it slowly begins this next movement. Fast, 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 slow, slow, slow. Okay? If you want some really great, solid, stellar examples of this information, 47 through 60 inside of the Animator's Survival Kit will really help you out if you need some good visualizations of how to draw all this stuff. Okay? I'm going to leave it up to you and your awesomeness to figure out how to animate and draw this inside of Adobe Animate. Many of you probably can figure this out pretty quickly. One one tool that will be very helpful. Okay? And let me just do it real fast. I'm going to create just a red sphere. A red sphere, and then I don't want a stroke, but I do want to fill color for, okay. Okay. There's my silly little ball. And if I select that straight line, I'll increase its width. There we go. Okay. One thing that will be helpful for you guys, two things, okay? Notice that I'm on the direct selection tool. I can select both objects at the same time by holding down the Shift key and selecting on the objects that I want to work with together, okay? There's a great tool that will be very, very helpful in this project, which is the free transform tool. This guy. What's cool about free transform is that you get to rotate your object, okay? If you put your cursor right there on the corners, see, I can rotate it, okay? Just visually on the screen, where is it rotating from? The white dot. Can you move that white dot? Oh yeah, man. Okay, check it out. I can move that white dot to the top here, and then hint, hint, nudge, nudge, pendulum swing, hint, hint, nudge. This will make your life a whole lot better. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Okay? All right. If you have any questions, please find me during office hours. And please, 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 if you need a small refresher, go back in and look at the live stream on YouTube. I'm going to stop it here in about 2 seconds. The moment that I stop it, it's going to be archived and saved on my YouTube channel. So you'll always be able to go back in and check out what we learned in class today. Sound good? Is everyone understanding the expectations for this week? Good luck. May the force be with you. I'll see you next week.